I'm gonna do it at Purdue. I'll be there with all my teammates, all the faculty on the staff that really helped me along the way, and to be able to celebrate that with them and share a moment with them, it's gonna be special.
How y'all doing? Make sure to hit like and subscribe on your way in. That would be great. We got a little boom arm action going on here. Boom arm. Thank you very much, the community member who solved this issue for us. I hope y'all can hear me loud and clear. This is going to be a little bit of an adjustment for me, but we're going to be talking about Zach Edey today. We got to talk about Zach Edey because, honestly, a very polarizing prospect, and sometimes we can be guilty of, let's say, overthinking a simple equation, right? Now, honestly, Zach Edey is a very polarizing prospect for a number of reasons. Number one, he's a former college player of the year. He's a big man. We've heard for years that big men are extinct in the NBA, but we're seeing evidence to that counter every single year. We're seeing Daniel Gafford in the finals. We're seeing Kristaps Porzingis in the finals. Gafford can't shoot. Lively can't really shoot, and both those guys are the center rotation that decimated teams, right? We saw in the Western Conference Finals, we saw Rudy Gobert, and he was fairly effective. So does Zach Edey have a place in the NBA, right? So we got to talk a little bit about why he is rated and why he is polarizing in the way that he is. We'll talk about why I was so initially down on him and what I've seen from him in watching his tape that has made me sort of change my mind on him quite a bit. And ultimately, we're going to give you my top 10, well, it was actually top 14, top 15 big man, big board for the Toronto Raptors. We have been promising for weeks now that we're going to be doing draft coverage. It just never happens, but we are really getting into it now. So starting today, if the finals end today in an hour and a half, when the Dallas Mavericks take on the Boston Celtics, if that series is in fact over, I promise that I will turn full focus and every ounce of my attention over to the NBA draft and free agency. All right. Penny Hardaway saying Yves Missy got a green room invite, and you will see why when I talk about Yves Missy. So in this video, we're going to talk about Zach Edey, of course. We're going to talk about, sort of his rise and why I am bullish on him suddenly. And we're going to talk about the big man in this draft, because I do think that this draft is loaded with big men, and I do think that the Raptors have a bit of a hole there beyond Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl. There really isn't a big man in this on this team that's going forward, right? Jonte Porter's gone. Christian Koloko may be back, may not be back, but he's not on the team as of right now. You don't really have somebody. And I do think that because big men are somewhat underrated, that this could present an interesting opportunity for the Raptors in a somewhat weak draft to perhaps get some value at the backup big position. Okay, we got to talk about Zach Edey, right? Not a top 400 recruit coming into Purdue. Okay, played baseball and hockey more than basketball until he outgrew those sports, and ultimately basketball became the obvious and only choice because he was in fact just 7 feet tall, and he had to go to IMG Academy. Now, we've seen a lot of project bigs go to IMG Academy and not succeed. I remember, what was it? There's so many. You can really think about it, but the one that comes to mind is Satnam Singh. Now, I think a lot of people initially thought Zach Edey was another Satnam Singh. Is that racially motivated because they're both of Asian descent? Satnam Singh being of East Indian descent, and Zach Edey being Chinese Canadian. Is there some sort of bias going on there where we just assume that he's less athletic or whatever? He looked a little different. Obviously, his body has come a long way, his conditioning has come a long way, and his game has come a long way. Now, the Toronto Raptors historically have shown that they are fans of late bloomers. They're fans of guys who picked up the game a little bit later. And so even though Zach Edey is a senior, maybe he has a little bit more upside for the same reason that Pascal Siakam had a little bit more upside. He picked up the game so much later. I think it's also worth stating that there hasn't really been a player in college basketball as dominant as Zach Edey. As much as you want to say Luka Garza, as much as you want to say Oscar Sheboy, these guys were just not as good as Zach Edey. I'm sorry, they weren't. You might say, well, he was just bigger and taller than everybody. Well, guess what? He's going to be bigger and taller than everybody in the NBA as well. 7'4", 300 pounds. There isn't a center that can stop this. So then you might ask, really, let's talk about the criticisms. Can't shoot. Okay. That's dubious. And we'll talk about why he maybe can shoot. Slow-footed, right? We'll get schemed out. We'll get picked on a lot, right? That I think that's a fair criticism, and we can talk about drop coverage and how the Raptors can possibly effectively use him. There's also the limited post move, post touch. To anyone saying he's going to be better than Yao Ming, you really need to go back and watch Yao Ming play basketball. Zach Edey is not Yao Ming. He's not better than Yao Ming. At the same age, Yao Ming was leap years ahead in terms of his offensive polish, his footwork, his post moves, the dynamicism, the shooting touch, the overall package of Yao Ming was just so enticing. There's a reason why he was considered a generational prospect. There's a reason why. It wasn't just because the game is slow. So I think that goes to the bigger question of why is Zach Edey so underrated as a prospect, and why is the two-time college national player of the year, um, why is he being considered potentially not even a first round pick by many analysts? Some people have him down at 23. Some people have him as a fringe lottery pick. Why is this guy not on the same level as Donovan Clingan? Why is he not on, the same level as an Alex Sarr? I think it's because people think that there's a limited upside with a player this slow. Sure. Okay. I think some people feel like maybe once he goes up against bigger competition, that some of his advantages are going to, disappear. Yuffie L saying no for Zach Edey. He is like Boban Marjanovic. I think that there's a thought that there too, right? Boban, right? Like, okay. I want to talk about this from the perspective of a person who started out a very big Zach Edey detractor and has come around a really long way. Like, you're going to be pretty friggin' surprised when you see where he is on my big man big board, because I started out with him at 12 on my big man big board, and he's moved into the top 10 and very firmly above a lot of prospects that you guys might probably like more than him. So I want to talk about what he does well, before I talk about some of the things he doesn't do so well. So one of the things that he does well, in my opinion, is he screens really well. We saw this with Team Canada, that he is just an incredible screener. Okay. The other thing that I think he can do really well at the NBA level is I think he can defend the rim really well. Even if you say that, okay, well, we've seen clips of, guys from Team USA, Anthony Edwards, Austin Reeves, et cetera, going at him. And when he goes up against dynamic guards like Tyrese Halliburton, et cetera, that if they pull him and they start to, really, really start to scheme against him and pick on him like they did in college basketball, that he is going to be very, very limited in those situations. Okay, I get that. But so is Rudy Gobert. So is every single drop big. So is Jonas Valanciunas. So is Ivica Zubac. So is Steven Adams. So are a lot of guys. So is Daniel Gafford right now. I mean, those teams still made it to the finals. Why is he worse than Daniel Gafford? I think a lot of people maybe subconsciously think 7'4" means injury prone. Well, so far, so good. No serious injuries with him so far. I think maybe some people see him like a little bit like a Luka Garza, where they say, okay, well, we know you were the man in college, but what can you do when you're not the man? What skills do you bring beyond your post scoring? This is not a Jahlil Okafor situation where his bread and butter is everything to do with scoring and everything else is just washed. Jahlil Okafor was not a great defender. For those of you who don't remember, Jahlil Okafor ended up going to the process Sixers, was a top 3 pick. He ends up going to he ends up going first year. He ends up 17-7 terrible advanced analytics, but 17 and 7, a lot of empty calorie points. He finishes behind guys like Karl Anthony Towns and Kristaps Porzingis. A lot of people feel maybe third was a bit of a reach, but the year after and the year after, it really turns out to be a horrible fit because Embiid comes in after the injury. He ends up being much better than him. He ends up getting benched. He's out of the league very soon. Okay, gets into a fight with some Boston fans. Okay, but this is not a Jahlil Okafor. No matter how much you want to think it's a Jahlil Okafor, I'll tell you right now, Jahlil Okafor was a lot more talented than Zach Edey. A lot more talented. I watched a lot of Jahlil, and in college, and I just thought he was one of the best post bigs I'd ever seen. But the reason for Jahlil failing is once you took the ball out of his hands, he didn't do much else. He wasn't a solid screener. He wasn't a good defender. Drop or switch, he couldn't really hang in the NBA if the ball wasn't going through him, and he wasn't good enough to have the ball go through him. And then plus, on top of that, he had a whole bunch of depression. He had a massive injury. Okay, so this is not a Jahlil Okafor situation, and it's not a Yao Ming situation. You're not drafting this guy to come in and be your franchise savior. You're not asking him to do that. You're asking him to set solid screens, which I believe he can do at an elite level. You're asking him to grab offensive rebounds and just generally be a guy who sucks in a second defender on that. Okay? He can do that. You are also asking him to be somewhat capable down the line as a spacing big. And I believe he can do that. His free throw shooting percentage is very encouraging. If you look at the thing that I'm flashing on the screen right now, just take a look at his assist percentage. Look at that. Look at that free throw percentage. He's been hovering around 70% his entire college career. That to me is very encouraging that he will eventually know how to shoot at least from 15 feet. Now he thinks he could shoot threes. Okay. Well, I think eventually he will as well. All right. And he was very quick to point out that he went 1 for 2 in his college career. Purdue did not ask him to shoot threes. I like the fact that he's very coachable. I like the fact that he's malleable. In his first 2 years at Purdue, he wasn't really the featured guy, and he just set solid screens and he hustled and he played his role. When he became the featured guy, he went into that situation as well. I like guys who've played different roles in college. It is a good adjustment to see what they can do. Now, the Toronto Raptors have drafted a player who's pretty similar to Zach Edey, albeit a little bit more nimble, but currently he's on their roster, and that's Jakob Poeltl. There's a lot in common with these two. I think the most underrated skill of Zach Edey is his passing. To me, his basketball IQ, his passing, and his coachability are what separates everything for me. At 7'7" wingspan, he holds the ball high. He's not a guy you can bother very much. Now, everything in basketball comes down to advantage. Create an advantage at some place on the court, create an advantage, and then milk that advantage very quickly to generate a good look. Okay. Some teams generate that advantage by going to the perimeter and setting a ball screen and getting a guard coming downhill, collapsing a defender, forcing a switch, passing out to the corner to a movement shooter coming off a screen. And you got to do it that way. Some teams can force an advantage by throwing the ball inside to a Nikola Jokic and having him sort of pick you apart because the minute you send a second defender, he's going to milk the advantage, right? Nikola Jokic is also a very, very slow-footed center. He is also a guy who has active hands and a good hand-eye coordination. He's also a guy who has some shooting touch. I'm not suggesting Zach Edey is going to be Nikola Jokic. That would be insane. He is nowhere near nimble enough. He is not as skilled. His ball skills are nowhere close to it. But could he do some of the stuff that Nikola Jokic does in terms of screen setting, in terms of quick reads out of the post, in terms of offensive rebounding? Some of the things that make Nikola Jokic successful on the basketball court are just the amount of pressure that he puts on the rim. Now, the Raptors don't put a ton of pressure on the rim. And once you start to think about the way the Raptors are trying to build this offense with a lot of smart cutting and a lot of off-ball movement and guys coming off screens and, guys like Grady Dick, movement shooters like Grady Dick who are trying to become moving targets on the perimeter coming off of screens, Emmanuel Quickly, deep shooters, etc. Look, the better your spacing is, the more functional a post big like Zach Edey is going to be, because the further those gaps are, right? If you put Zach Edey on the court in an NBA game right now, okay, I'm just saying right now, no development, no 4 years from now. I'm saying right now, put him on the court, put him with like 4 great shooters, okay? He is going to be pretty successful because he doesn't turn the ball over. He is reasonably capable as a screener, and every time he sets a screen, he is diving, or he is going to eventually be able to pop off that screen. So that is immediately going to generate an advantage. Offensive rebounding, box out assignments. You're going to have to send 2 to him every time. He's too big, too strong, 300 pounds. He is going to be a terror on the offensive glass. Now, you look at guys like Jonas Valanciunas, and in limited spurts, Jonas Valanciunas helps you win basketball games. Go look at how many games Jonas Valanciunas has won. Find me the last time Jonas Valanciunas was on a losing team. He's never on a losing team. Almost ever in his entire life, he's not been on a losing team. I think the last time he was on a losing team was like first 2 years in Toronto. He was a huge part of those massive win teams. Now, is Zach Edey really that much slower than Jonas Valanciunas? It's not that much slower than Jonas Valanciunas. Now, I've said a lot of nice things about Zach Edey. Let me point to some criticisms. He is very, very slow-footed in the full court. I don't give a shit what the all the combine stuff says about his shuttle run and his three-quarter sprint or whatever. I watch a lot of tape on Zach Edey, and I can tell you he is very slow in transition. He will not be the slowest player in the league because there are players who tested worse than him in that sense. But he's also not going to be Luka Garza, in my opinion. Okay, you can see Luka Garza's numbers here. The improvement that he showed through 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, the last 6 years, Zach Edey's improvement has been immense. That points to a lot of things for me. Okay. Now, this is my big man, big board. And, this is where I have Zach Edey. We can talk about this. And we will talk about this for sure once we are done talking about Zach. But hold on, let me just 501, right? Okay. So let's just let some Zach Edey, tape play out while I'm talking about him, right? In terms of post stuff, like he's good, but yes, in transition with RJ Barrett, with Scotty Barnes, trying to run out in the break, the only saving grace for him will be if he becomes a trailing pop big. Okay, if he becomes a guy who can kind of trail the play and be sort of slow-footed. Another guy who was very slow-footed, but very slow-footed in transition, but very nimble in defensive coverages. Marc Gasol, right? So you can operate with a guy who's a little bit slow. Another guy who's really slow, Luka Doncic. Fast court, in the fast break, Luka is slow. So you have to cater. Now, it's one thing to cater your offense to be slower because of Luka, but it's another thing to cater your offense to be slow for Zach Edey. But what if Zach Edey doesn't have to cover as much of the court as you typically would at Purdue? See, in Purdue, whereas he was playing 38, 39 minutes, and maybe he was conserving some energy defensively and in terms of running the floor, I mean, can he just sprint for like 15 minutes a night? Can he do a track meet? Is he in shape to do that? I believe he is. Is he ever going to be able to guard in space? Is he going to switch? No, he's never going to be able to do that. But that can be said about 15 to 20 centers, right now that are playing major minutes in the league. These guys aren't going extinct because in the end, you're still putting a 7'4" guy in the most absolute important part of the basketball court, right? The Raptors' paint defense was absolutely okay. P saying clickbait. This is not clickbait at all. The Raptors are targeting a big, and I would almost stake my reputation on the fact that one of those 2 picks are going to be a big. Now, do I think Zach Edey is going to be a Toronto Raptor? No, I do not. I don't think Zach Edey is going to be a Toronto Raptor because I think he's going to be gone before pick 19. So unless they're planning on trading up for him, which I would not suggest, I do think he's going to go somewhere else. I will talk about some bigs that I think could be Toronto Raptors, but I don't think Zach Edey is going to be one of them because I think at some point you're going to have to realize that GMs are going to, I think GMs are trying to outthink themselves right now. They're trying to outthink themselves because nobody wants to pick this guy up and then he turns into Boban Marjanovic. But I think you have to trust the track record of people improving on their weaknesses. Most people don't improve the way that he's improved. That speaks to his work ethic. I read a lot about Zach Edey. I watched a lot of interviews with Zach Edey. I got to learn a lot about him over the last week. And frankly, I think a lot of, the criticism is unfounded. I really do. I think a lot of the stuff that people are saying about him, you know, being uh, DJ Johnson saying Khalil Ware seems to be the best fit theoretically. Oof, I don't think so. Theoretically, yes, but basketball is played on the court, not in theory. And again, we have a guy like Khalil Ware who prototypically fits more of the modern big archetype. But like, look at Zach Edey's motor. Look at this guy's intensity that he plays with. Does that matter to you at all? Does it matter to you that your big man have a bit of a mean streak, right? He has that. He has a bit of a chip on his shoulder, which I really appreciate. He has that like desire to prove people wrong, which I appreciate. And I have a feeling Masai Ujiri appreciates that too. This is really one of those organizations that should test the hell out of the person that they're drafting more so than anything else. In the absolute worst case, what is Zach Edey going to be? In the absolute worst case, he is going to be a third big on your roster that is going to occasionally be able to burn 6 fouls against a Joel Embiid or a Nikola Jokic and probably do a horrible job doing that. But he's going to crash the glass and set awesome screens and make decent reads. That's the worst case scenario. There's no scenario in which he's out of the league in 4 years or anything like that, in my opinion. I think the floor is higher than people think. Okay. The best case scenario, huh, the best case scenario is actually that he is a starter in the NBA. The best case scenario is that he is a starter and then he becomes a little bit more mobile, right? Athleticism does not end at 22. He can get more athletic. With NBA training, he can become better. He can become bigger. Okay. He's never going to be Victor Wembanyama. He's not going to be Alex Sarr. He's not going to be Evan Mobley. You don't need him to be. You need him to be an effective drop big. You know who else is a drop big? Kristaps Porzingis is a pretty much a drop big. Okay. Watch the highlights. Watch what you're seeing here. Does this really seem that different than the way Kristaps moves on the perimeter? Just be honest with yourself. I understand that I understand that a lot of people are going to say, well, KP shoots the deep three, and that's the difference. Okay, well, if Zach can shoot reasonably well from three and you get him at 19, I don't really think that's the end of the world. So my long and short of this is I think Zach Edey would be fine at 19. I just don't think he's going to land there. Now let's talk about the bigs in this draft because honestly, I think there are a couple bigs that I love in this draft. Now, I don't like Alex Sarr. I'm going to be very firm on that. He's number one on my big man big board by default. I don't think he's a top 5 pick for me. But I assume he's going to go top 2. He's either going to go to the Atlanta Hawks or he's going to go to the Washington Wizards. I think the Hawks are going to lean Zachary Risachet as they should. Risachet should be the number one. Should be the number 1 pick. Okay. I have Yves Missi number 2. I have him over Donovan Clingan, Modest Buzelis, who a lot of people see as a wing, Zach Edey, Deron Holmes, Tristan Da Silva, Kyle Filipowski, Salon. I got to tell you, Yves Missi, his ability to drive the basketball is very tantalizing. Now, okay, some of the reads were not so great. Some of the foul trouble was not so great. Some of his touch around the basket wasn't so great. But maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm crazy. But I do see a little bit of Pascal Siakam and Yves Missi, man. But defensively, oh my God, I see a prospect who can switch, who has very mobile hips, who has, transition terror written all over him, 7 feet tall, like barefoot, 7 feet tall, elite wingspan. I mean, the people saying Clint Capella really didn't watch Clint Capella play basketball prior to the Hawks and the Rockets, because I tell you, Yves Missi is very good. And he's also another guy who was late to basketball. Donovan Clingan, again, as a drop big, very impressive. The amount of shots he's able to change at the rim, his hand-eye coordination, his screen setting. Again, a lot of the same reasons that I said for Zach Edey. I think Donovan Clingan, but I think his defense is just that much better. Modest Buzelis, I think a lot of people have kind of, second guessed him. The shooting, how was it? The G League shooting was not great. Some of the shot making. Is he tough enough? There's been a lot of that. What's his position defensively? But I think if he falls to 14 or 15, someone should get fired. I think he's up there. So in the first 4 guys, I really do think all those guys are lottery picks. And, with Yves Missi, I think he's going to fall. A lot of mock drafts have him 23rd, 26th. I'm just like, man, if he's there for the Raptors at 19, you take it and you run. Um, Way too smoky saying I thought Yves Missi was 6'10" barefoot. You are correct. I misspoke. I said 7 foot. He has a 7'2" wingspan and he's 6'10" barefoot. Correct. My bad. Shit. Who the hell was 7 foot barefoot? Who was 7 foot barefoot? It wasn't Deron Holmes 6'10". Who was 7 foot barefoot? I'm trying to think here. Was it Alex Sarr who was 7 feet barefoot? Or Kalal Ware? One of those two guys. Anyways, so going on to Zach Edey at number 5, I think Zach should be a top 15 to top 16 pick. I think it kind of comes down to like, okay, in a normal draft, I could see him being the 28th pick, 29th pick. This is not a normal draft. I think the floor on him is high enough and the ceiling is appetizing enough that you could talk yourself into him being a top 15 pick. Okay. Deron Holmes, the second, firmly a big. I've heard some crazy people say he could be a wing. He absolutely cannot, but some playmaking chops there. I see a lot of Jared Allen in him, and I don't know if it's just physical similarities or whatever, but I really like some of his playmaking ability. It's not like point forward stuff, but it's good for a team that is trying to do a lot of read and react stuff. If you watch the Dallas Mavericks in Game 3, you saw a lot of off-ball misreads, right? You saw a lot of stupid stuff from PJ Washington, from Derek White. Yeah, sorry, not Derek White. Derek Jones Jr. You saw a lot of misreads, areas in the game where a little bit more of a thinking player might have helped you. You see a guy cutting backdoor, his man kind of leaves him alone. He doesn't dart to the basket. He continues to trail to the corner. Things like that, where advantages that are there for a second are just gone because the player just misread what they were supposed to do in that moment. On the other hand, you have elite basketball intelligence from guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday, where it's like, okay, these guys are making the right read every single time. Like they're relocating to a corner that's open. They're stopping short. Even Jason Tatum has come a really long way. Jaylen Brown, these guys teaching the game that as Joe Mazzulla and Ime Udoka have done and Brad Stevens has done over the last 6 years for the Boston Celtics has been a huge part of why the Celtics are where they are right now. Sure, they have imported some players who are already very smart, like Derek White, who's very well coached. But I think that one of the things that people really, really misinterpret and misunderstand is how important teaching the game is to people who don't necessarily read the game very well. And that's where high basketball IQ comes into play, because I remember the story about Pau Gasol learning the triangle offense like in a day or something like that. And it's just like, that's the point. When you have a guy who's already really intelligent when it comes to basketball, they make better decisions on the basketball court, and those decisions amplify and then they add up over a season. And it might get you 2, 3 wins that just don't show up. But in those critical moments, they tend to have good ideas about what to do on the basketball court when things change, things shift. Zach Edey. So Deron Holmes, I like his basketball IQ. Tristan da Silva, I just see a floor of a role player, right? And I see a ceiling of a role player. I'm not seeing a ceiling of a star. I'm not necessarily even seeing a starter. I'm just seeing a guy who's comfortably top 8 in your rotation, or worst case, end of bench. I'm just seeing an NBA player. Okay. So that's what I see in Tristan da Silva. I don't necessarily think that he's gonna, wow anybody and go and become um, a superstar, an all-star, whatever. But, this is the part of the draft where I think you really, really start to hone in on how likely is this person just to hang on and be a professional and do their job. Kyle Filipowski, same thing, right? Modern big. Yeah, there's some defensive issues, but I think some of them are overblown as well. I think he's a little bit more switchable than people give him credit for. There was an injury that might have held him back a little bit, but great playmaking upside, good shooter, like really good shooter. A lot of comps to Keith Van Horn and a lot of other tall white shooters. Kelly Olynyk is another guy that he's often compared to. Honestly, I think he's just way too good at this stage of the draft. Like if you end up, at 24, 25, how can you possibly pass on a player whose worst case scenario is a top 10 player on your roster? Like if the Lakers had him, at 17 or whatever, I think they should give him a look because he fit in very well with what they do next to Anthony Davis. As long as you can surround him with a big who can cover up for some of his deficiencies, I think he's a fantastic, guy. And again, screening, decent, right? Decent screen setter, decent, basketball IQ, good read and react, relocation stuff, and seems to really love the game. And I think, a lot of GMs out there sometimes have this idea of bigs and they ask themselves, is this one of those bigs that really loves the game, or is this one of those bigs that was pushed into the game, right? And I think that, with Kyle Filipowski, Tristan Da Silva, Deron Holmes, Zach Edey, whatever, there's a lot of love for the game that I think you could pretty much put in the bank and say they're not just going to fall off a cliff, right? Because the NBA gets hard for them. Salon. Now, I'm not super high on Tijani Salon, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Athletically, I just don't trust it. His decision making, I don't trust it. I think he's very raw. I think he's very far away, and it's the same thing that I could say about Ulrich Komche. Um, I haven't seen enough, and I see maybe a worse version of Obi Toppin. Now, a lot of people see a wing. I see a big. Later down the line, I see a big. So, I mean, I could be wrong on that. Kalel Ware. Now, this is my Brandon Miller of this year, right? A guy that I think mentally doesn't have it, but everyone tells me he's great. Kalel Ware, has all the prototypical skills of a modern big. He can shoot the basketball, he can rotate, he can cover the rim a little bit, he can switch out a little bit, he's athletic, he's got a lot of good stuff in transition. Again, I just don't buy him as a person. I don't buy him as a prospect. I don't buy him as as a defender necessarily, like his motor. I just think that mentally the NBA is such a grind. You go from college where you're the man, and then there's all these things that come up in the NBA. Suddenly there's a lot more money involved. There's pressures, there's older teammates, there's internal politics, there's the media, there's a bunch of stuff. And then there's the distractions. And ultimately it comes down to your mind. Most prospects are going to be defined by their mind more so than their body or their skill set, because the skill set and the body can be built. The mind is harder to unwind. And I just think that I just don't trust him. And that's just me. And I'm probably going to be wrong. And maybe he ends up being the best big in this draft. I really wouldn't doubt it. It's possible that he's better than Alex Sarr, right? He is better than Alex Sarr. Like, if they both played college basketball last year, I'm pretty sure his numbers would be better than Alex Sarr's. There's a reason why he's, anywhere from 14 to 22 on most drafts. Um, Christian Wood is a great example, right? There's emotional maturity that comes from a very young age. It comes down to your mindset about how you approach things. He's the exact opposite of Zach Edey in terms of, his approach to the game. Edey is like constant chip on his shoulder. What do you need from me, coach? Everything about the team. I'm not trying to paint a character issue of a player that I've never met before, I've never spoken to, but it just feels like from the interviews, from the commentary, from watching him play, that there are mental lapses that I'm just not willing to ignore at that level. Okay. Then we got Adam Bona. Look, UCLA big, foul machine, right? Didn't get a hell of a lot better in year two, even though his usage went up crazy by 10%. Um, I am very high on him, like higher than maybe this list is telling you. I think sneaky, I think he's going to be a Raptor. I really do. I think this might be a player that the Raptors just reach for at 31, and I think everyone's going to lose their mind, and then he's going to come to summer league, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh, okay, I get it." Um, Athlete, like his athleticism is actually pretty insane. His rim protection is very good. I think he might be I've seen some deceleration, acceleration stuff in transition. He doesn't have any touch. Sure, not a shooter. I get it. But as a defender, 6'8", 7'4" wingspan, this meets like what okay, Matt saying next batch of 2024 Green Room invites per Draft Express. Rob Dillingham, Nikola Topic, Jared McCain, Keyshawn George, Isaiah Collier, East Macy. No surprises there at all. There was a lot of people drawing a lot of conclusions about Rob and Nikola Topic not being in the first round of invites. That was partially due to physicals. That was it. That was it. John Hamilton saying Bona is a genetic freak. Exactly. And also, I really trust him, like as a person, as an athlete, I watched a lot of interviews of his. I reached out to a couple people who cover UCLA basketball and just to like get an idea of like his habits, things that people say about him on campus. And I just walked away thinking, this is the type of guy that the Raptors would love. Um, look, the Raptors traded away OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, Pascal Siakam, not because they got over those guys, but because ultimately they needed something else on their roster, and those guys were all free agents coming up this summer. They didn't want to pay him. Knicks asked for it. They wanted something else in return, so they had to get rid of those guys. It doesn't mean that they've fallen out of love with that type of player. Adam Bona has a lot of Precious Achiuwa in his game. I think he could be a terror on the offensive glass. I think he could be a terror as a screener. I think he could be very, very effective as a pick and roll big, who just like finish at the rim. Who he reminds me of? He reminds me a ton of Daniel Gafford. Like he reminds me a lot of Daniel Gafford, and honestly, I've been a big Daniel Gafford fan for a very long time. Um, yeah, like I think this is the guy at 31. He's one of the guys at 31. Another guy at 31, Tyler Smith, G League Ignite, sniper shooter, might be one of the best big man shooters that I've seen in a couple of years. Um, Again, little raw, other elements of his game, very, very difficult to peg down. But ultimately, I do see a guy who could grow in the 905 for a couple of years and become a serviceable role player. Now, Jonathan Mogbo, very interesting player, and another guy that I think could be in the play for the Raptors at 31. In my last video, I said that Adam Bona and Jonathan Mogbo could be guys that the Raptors look at in the undrafted heap. Now they're rising up draft boards, and suddenly I'm thinking maybe these are guys that you look at 31, or if you trade down from 31 to 40 or something like that for something else, maybe these are guys you look at there. Ultimately, I think there's a good chance that someone like him could fit what the Raptors like to do defensively so much. And he is a transition terror. He is a great athlete. He has a ton of playmaking upside. Um, just a couple of weeks ago, it's funny to me actually. If you've ever thought to yourself like, how does this happen, right? And let me just I'll talk about Jonathan Mogul like very quickly. Bobby Clement, I'm not super enamored with him. I think I have him 47 on my big board. A lot of people have him as high as 31. I would be pretty disappointed if he's our pick, to be completely honest with you. Ulrich Comte, same thing. I don't have a tremendous read on him or a great amount of faith. There's a lot of flashes in the pan. Osho Ighodaro, a guy that I started out the cycle, probably, top 40. I'm coming out top 50. Raptors don't have a top 50 pick. They have a 31st pick and a 19th pick, so he's probably off the hall. And PJ Hall, I think, would be a guy to look at for an Exhibit 10 contract. Those are my reads on those guys, but I'll talk about Jonathan a little bit more. Okay. So with Jonathan Mogbo, like a guard coming out of high school, going into high school, he was a 5'10, 5'11. So he played point guard, right? This is a guy that Scotty has known for quite some time. He comes from West Palm Beach, right? And his motor, oh my God, his athleticism, nose for the basketball, it's very Reggie Evans esque. Now, Reggie Evans was not able to handle the basketball in the full court. I'm not saying he's going to be Sean Marion. I'm not. But I'm saying he's got Sean Marion's stuff. And that is very impressive, right? Um, Yuffie, can you please show on the cap locks? We understand. Just can you? I'll just ask you very politely once. It just makes it very difficult to read. Um, so I really think that I've warmed up the idea of Jonathan at 31. I think he would be a really interesting player down in the 905 for a year, and then he can get minutes with the big club in years following. At worst case, I see him being like a 10th, ninth guy, right? If you're seeing Xavier Tillman, right, for and I'm not saying he's a center, but I'm saying like he can guard up, right? You see guys like Kevon Looney, you see guys like Xavier Tillman. Strength is still a thing in the NBA. That's why I'm higher on Zach Edey than perhaps some people are right now, because ultimately strength is going to still be an asset. It's always going to be an asset. Length, strength, size, his ability to set screens, his ability to come off those screens. Now he's a complete non-shooter, and I think that is, Matt saying not touching logo at 31 too high. Sure, look, man, like it comes down to this. You bring a person into your organization as much as you are bringing a player into your organization. You also bring a person into your organization, right? You want people who buy into their role. You want people who can, exceed and accelerate in their role. I think Jonathan can be a very interesting player in his role, specifically as a change of pace, hustle guy. You know, he has some skills. The Ringer had the most hilarious comp for him, which was Ben Simmons, if he cared about basketball. I don't see Ben Simmons. I don't see a point guard, but I do see a point forward who has elite length, very good positional versatility defensively, and is a bit of a late riser. So is Bona like a Biombo? That's a good comparison for him. And yes, yes, there is a lot of Bismack Biombo in Adam Bona. Again, you can mold players this early. If you have to look at this draft, you can say to yourself, okay, it's not the strongest draft. Can we just get one guy who will fill a roster spot from 1 to 12? Can we just get one of those guys? You got to think of it that way. What is the floor of this player, right? Can they do something as a specialist for me in specific situations? Can they potentially be, like for instance, the Knicks used Precious Achua when they lost OG Anunoby in the injury. They were able to use a forward cover for a three because Achua had that positional versatility. As a roster building piece, Precious Achua has that benefit that he can fill in for the 5, the 4, or the 3. Offensively, he has a ton of holes, but the fact that he can fill in defensively on 3 positions is an asset when you're talking about roster building. It means that you may be able to get away with a 2-for-1 type of situation. You got to look at roster building differently. It's the same thing with a guy who can play 1 through 3 on offense. You consider a guy like Stephon Castle, right? He's a 1, 2, or a 3. You look at a guy like Ron Holland, he's a 2 and a 3. You look at a guy like Matas Bazelis, he's a 3 and a 4. So guys who are multi-positional are always going to be favored by the Toronto Raptors. And if you look at all the guys that the Raptors have drafted, apart from Fred VanVleet, who was, an undrafted free agent, almost every player that the Raptors have ever prioritized has been very multi-positional, which actually makes a point to say why Zach Edey and Jakob Poeltl are such outliers in terms of the way the Raptors are thinking about this, because they're not multi-positional. Zach Edey will never ever play a position other than the 5 at the NBA level, and he will sometimes be even too slow for that. So the way I would build a roster is if I have 17 roster spots, I would devote 2 to 3 of those roster spots to non-multi-positional players. So a de facto center, right? And a de facto point guard. Now, you might say the Toronto Raptors already have a de facto point guard, Immanuel Quickley. I think you'd be wrong. I think Immanuel Quickley is a 1-2. But you would definitely be right in saying that they have a de facto center already. And I understand a lot of people saying that Zach Edey, if he was to come in, Jakob Poeltl would need to be moved on. I think they can learn from each other, or I think that Zach Edey can learn from Jakob. I think that Jakob's an incredibly smart person and that he would be able to pass on a tremendous amount of knowledge to Zach Edey in his first year. And then after a year, you can move him on. I think it also helps that Zach Edey and Jakob Poeltl have a ton in common, because if Zach does spend a ton of time in the G League in his first year, and trust me, he will, if he comes here, he will spend a ton of time in the G League. Whether he knows that or not right now, he will. If Grady spent time in the G League last year, certainly in the 19th overall pick, if Zach Edey falls to 19, is not going to be spared from spending some time in the G League. So if he does spend some time in the G League, there's always the added benefit of the fact that you can run some of the stuff that the Raptors run with Jakob Poeltl, with Zach Edey down in the G League. So the way I was saying is that I would have 3 players who are not very multi-positional on my team, and then everyone else will be multi-positional. So a guy like Jonathan Mogbo is interesting because he could theoretically play 3-4-5. That is a type of positional versatility that the Raptors really like. Now, whether he's a 3, a 4, or a 5, defensively, offensively, he's always going to be the 5. He's always going to be the dunker spot. So we've talked about a lot of players that ultimately are going to end up clogging the lane for Scotty Barnes. And maybe that's not the greatest thing in the world when you think about all these players. So let's talk briefly, very briefly before we exit this live, about the synergistic match with the star player. Right now, I've talked a lot about someone like Nikola Topic. Talked a lot about a guy like. Hold on 1 second. Y'all hearing a buzzing noise? Am I screwing up here? Okay. Hold on 1 second. Is anyone hearing a buzzing noise, or is that just me? I talked a lot about Reed Shepherd being a perfect fit for Scotty Barnes, right? Talked about some guys maybe not being ideal fits for Scotty. So let's talk about how these 17. Well, let's talk about the first 13 guys, how they would fit on the court with Scotty. I think Alex Sarr, the theory of Alex Sarr would fit beautifully with Scotty. He's a stretch big. He can pop out to the floor. He can add, hmm, I do. It's subtle. Hang on 1 sec. Check, check. Yeah, that's what I thought. Give me 1 sec. Okay, probably a good time for this. We got FA on. FA, what's up?
I'm good. How you doing? I was just waiting for you to go through all the players before I hop on.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going?
I'm getting microphone feedback. So you talk.
Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, but my microphone is giving feedback.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you're okay now with Zach Edey. I think I'm good with him at 19, and I think Raptors they're possibly trying to move up to get him if possible because I read somewhere that the Lakers are going to take him at 19, at 17. If he drops to 17.
Zach Edey at 17?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even New Orleans too, I think he's not going to drop. Even if Raptors passes him at 19, he's not going to drop past New Orleans. But it's obvious that I think New Orleans feels that he's going to go before 21. So they're trying to trade the 21st pick for future second round picks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think of Izmisi?
I don't like him. I don't like
Why
him.
not?
I know you're very high on him. He can handle the ball a little bit, but he can't really shoot, and I don't think he doesn't rebound very well. I think he has small hands. Reminds me of Ibaka. Like Ibaka can really hold the ball very well. Has small hands. I'm not gonna take him top 19 if he's. I know you won't like this. Though I prefer Kelaware at 19 instead of Missy. I know I've heard about all the work ethic issues and stuff like that, but if you can motivate him, the talent is there to be top 10.
The same thing can be said for Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, that's. Well, I mean, Bagley too had injury issues too, right? So it's not apart from the talent, but Marvin Bagley can't really play defense. Kelleher can block. I like the way he goes hard on the rim and things like that. But I agree, he doesn't have court awareness sometimes. Well, I from all the bigs, right? I think Zach Edey would be my pick if he's there. I don't care about what people say about spacing and everything. Size still matters. And but the problem is that if you pick Zakidi, what do you do with Yakapodo? I think eventually I would like to trade Yakapodo because you need a big that can space the floor to a certain extent.
I think they can be on the same roster.
Well, looking at the players so far that they've invited to the green room, I think they're 21 or 22. Zakidi said he's not gonna attend. He's gonna watch from Purdue. I think the key player, Kelleher, is not there yet, so that means that it's likely possibly dropping. But Carrington is not invited yet. But there was a report today that he's getting a lottery buzz from few teams in the lottery. Then
Maybe Sacramento.
Possibly Sacramento or Miami.
Miami doesn't have a lottery pick though.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, possibly Sacramento or OKC.
Carrington for OKC would be weird.
But they're trying to trade this guy now. What's his name again? The guy
Edey.
that
Oh, sorry, Giddy.
ah Giddy. Yeah, they're trying to trade Giddy. Then the interesting guy that they invited to this guy from is it Kishon from
Mhm,
Miami. They invited him to green room. That means that he is likely gonna maybe go top 20.
mhm.
I won't be surprised if the Raptors are looking at him closely for a point guard.
Yeah, but like, shit, man, the buzzing is so intense right now. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but Rashard Lewis was also a green room invite, and he lasted all the way till 33. It happens.
Yeah, that's true, Sha. But when they pick him, yeah, it happens. I agree. Then, but this guy is likely gonna go top 20 though for free because he left NIL money. I think he got a promise. That's why he left the NIL money. So maybe to
I feel like
Orlando.
someone's gonna fall to 19, man.
That is the good news, right? With all of these players moving and somebody's gonna fall. Is it gonna be Hollins? Is it gonna be? What do you think about Isaiah Collier?
I can get on board with it.
I think we're in a really good spot at 19 and 30 and 31, right? Because somebody's going to drop to 19 the way this guy dropped last year that Houston picked. And
I want to
at
move up.
31, huh?
I want to
Move
move
up
up.
for who? I know the
Topic.
topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, topic.
Yeah.
I don't think it depends on how far you want to move up and what are you going
Because
to
you can get
give.
you can still get your big at 31.
You can get a big at 31. That is true. Yeah, that's why I will. Yeah, you can get a really good big at 31, but top is not gonna go past 11. So who are you gonna
The
move
worst
up
draft
to?
site in the world, NBADraft.net, has him at 19.
Yeah, NBA Draft does not is the worst. It's like seriously, like you're like, what are
I
they
think they
doing there?
had Rob Billingham at 24.
Dillingham, Dillingham, I heard other theories out there like they're trying to make him fall to 17 so the Lakers can pick him, but I don't think so. I think his height really affected him. His height and his weight is 164,
Mm-hmm.
6'1". Yeah. Well, the 31 pick is going to be really interesting, right? Because you have like the whole ninth and somebody's going to drop to 31, and it's possible that like maybe 3 or 4 players that you really like will drop to second round,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have teams calling you for the 31 pick because they really like somebody. So maybe then you can do like 34, 35 and
Mm-hmm.
future second round pick, or you get a second round pick this year too. So Raptors are in a good spot this year.
Yeah, I agree. Um, who do you think? Okay, I'll just leave this on this. Who do you think is going to be the 19th pick? Who do you think is going to be the 31st pick right now?
Jeez, I think if Zach Edey is there, it's gonna be the 19th pick.
Mm-hmm.
For 31, Tyler Smith might fall to 31. I'll take him and run. Or if he doesn't fall, then I like Pacom Daddy 8.
You would put two. You would take two bigs.
No, Pacom
No.
is it nice?
You said Tyler, right? Tyler Smith.
Tyler is a stretch for.
No, I know that, but I'm saying you would take Edey
Yeah,
and Tyler
yeah,
Smith.
yeah. If he drops, I'll take him. I
Yeah.
don't care about position right now. I care about best player available.
Yep. As do the Raptors. I've heard a lot of takes where people saying like, "Oh, the Raptors going to pick Zach Edey because of marketing, because he's Canadian, etc." And I'm just like, that's just not true. It's just not the way they work, man. But it doesn't hurt. It does not hurt to have a Chinese Canadian player for marketing, for interest, especially when you're raising when you're raising
And
the ticket prices the way that you are. Oh, I
yeah.
finally got it to end. Yes,
Oh,
success. I just
what,
had
what,
some.
what, what, what was going on?
It was mic interference. I finally got
Oh,
it. I finally got it. Oh my god, I'm so happy. Sorry, the buzzing was driving me crazy. Okay, I'm sorry, guys, for the last 10 minutes.
yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
that was Zach Edey. I think people fail to realize the guy is he has a chip on his shoulder and he has a really really good work ethic. Look at how far he's developed all these years, right? So you get Zach Edey, you take him a run, and like you said, that I listened to when you're talking about him. His floor is really really high, and the ceiling, whoops, nobody knows what the ceiling is gonna be.
yeah, I agree, and I think that people are just maybe outthinking themselves because they're like, "Hey, he's
Boban.
he exactly," and it's just like, look, I think he's just so much more nimble than Boban,
What's
right?
the name of this big man in Clippers again? I'm drawing a blank right now. If
Ivica Zubac.
even yeah, even if you get someone like that, is that not good enough? Like,
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
mhm,
So one of the things that I, heard someone say was, look at, the Raptors are tipping their hand on the Edey thing because look at the interview with Edey and he's the one guy that they talked about. Here's the thing. The Raptors are notorious for not even putting up they don't publicize who works out for them, right?
mhm,
You know this, right?
yeah,
So they don't have some teams do. Some teams do. And previous iterations of the Raptors, I think under Brian Colangelo, they did. So you'd be able to go to raptors.com and see who was coming in, and it was very easy. Right now, you have to go to Hoops Hype and figure it out from Instagram stories and what,
yeah,
guys are saying in interviews like, "Oh, I got Toronto next week." And then boom, they go to Toronto. So the Toronto Raptors are pretty notorious about keeping things close to the vest, right? As we
mhm,
talked about, they haven't even worked out certain players that they've actually drafted. So because the Raptors are so secretive about it, it actually makes me think there's no chance in hell Zach Edey is going to be on their board. Unless it's the biggest smokescreen on earth where they're just like, okay, let's just talk about this guy so that people think we're not going to take him and then we take him. But like, it doesn't seem likely that the Raptors will take Edey. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that number one, he's not going to be available at 19, and they know that. Number two, it could be that if he is available at 19, then who cares, right? Number three could be they're genuinely not interested in him because they want to play super fast and they don't see him being a part of that, um, or four, schematically, defensively, they just don't see his ability because really, like, there is a big gap between him and even current Jakob Poeltl in terms of mobility on the perimeter, right? It's big, right? Now, someone said, could he be a taller Brooke Lopez? Again, his shooting would have to come so far for him to become that, right? So, uh,
I think you're right. I honestly feel you're right. I think there's a player there that the Raptors are going to pick that nobody's talking about because, like, this draft is so flat that that's where scouting comes into play.
well, I also
So
think like there's another thing, like we were talking about Jonathan Mogbo, and Scotty's been talking about Mogbo like on his Instagram stories for a
too
while.
much.
Now,
Yeah.
if the Raptors really were targeting him, I feel they have a good enough relationship with Scotty to tell him stop it. Right? I have a feeling they have
Yeah.
a good enough relationship with Scotty. So at this point, you're propping up guys in a draft this flat. The Raptors could have a guy who's top 10 on their board and he falls to 19 very easily. I'm actually willing to
Hmm.
bet that someone who is top 10 on the Raptors board will fall to 19. Guaranteed, just because of how the Raptors think very differently than other teams. So I think that that is going to happen. I think, some player is just going to fall into their lap, and people are going to say it's a reach. I don't know who that player is. I really don't. It could be Isaiah Collier, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Um,
I think Collier is gonna be there at 19.
I don't.
Wait, then it's gonna go to Miami then.
We could
Okay,
try.
look, if Bob Carrington moves up, right, somebody's gonna
What's the
drop.
best way to do a mock draft? Is it there's a website for it, right?
Yeah, the website that you used the last time. I think you need to do a show where we do a mock draft.
What was the website? Fanspo?
I
Fanspo
think that's the one that you did use the last time.
Fanspo mock draft simulator. Okay. Let me just pull it up right now. I'm gonna just do it right now before the game starts. Is today's game at 8 o'clock or 8:30?
8:30.
Okay, thank God. Okay, we have a little bit of time here. Let me just do a mock draft real quick. Share screen. Fanspo mock draft. Okay. Let's do this. Dun 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 dun. Okay.
And somebody in the top 10 is likely going to trade the pick, right? Because, like what you've um, explained before, like the value of the pick and the salary.
Right. I completely agree. Okay, who's going number one? Okay, let's just go back and forth. Okay, I'm gonna go number one, right? Atlanta Hawks. I'm picking Zachary Risache.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, but I don't think that pick is going to stay with them. I think he's going to go to Spurs. The Spurs are likely going to trade for him and for Kling and Sommer. Number two, I'll
Okay.
go Alexander Sir.
Oof. Okay. You know what's interesting?
Mhm.
Both. Okay, so if the Spurs actually do trade up to number one and the Washington Wizards stay at number two, they'll go back to back top French picks.
Yeah,
And what's interesting is Bilal Koulibaly and Victor Wembanyama last year were the highest French picks ever. Okay, now the draft gets very interesting at number three. Houston, I'm assuming you're probably going to trade this pick, but who are you picking if you stay here?
I think they're going to fake Rich Shepherd.
Interesting. I probably would have gone.
They're likely going to swap it with the Spurs or somebody. Oh, somebody that wants Klingon.
I think they would go with Donovan Clingan, but okay, let's pick. Okay, wait. This was supposed to be my pick.
If your pick here, go.
Shoot. No, okay. Well, let's go Reed Shepard. That's fine. Okay, you're picking number 4. San Antonio Spurs first pick.
Stefan Castro.
So far, pretty much everything's as expected. Number 5, the Detroit Pistons select not Donovan Clingan, not Rob Dillingham, not Dalton Connect, not Nikola Topic. Who do they pick?
I know who they're
Honestly,
going to pick.
who do you think they're gonna pick?
Matas Buzelis.
Okay, I'm gonna go in another way. I'm okay. I'm gonna surprise everybody. I'm gonna go Dalton Connect at number 5.
Okay.
Okay, number 6. You are on the board. Charlotte Hornets. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball. Who you going?
Matas Buzelis.
Okay. All right. Number 7. We got the Portland Trailblazers, and they've got a lot of holes in a lot of different places. I'm going to go Donovan Clingan here. Okay. Number 8.
Spurs. Tijan Salon.
Holy shit.
I don't like him. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's the one that's the boss is
Okay.
there.
Now, number 9.
Been
I'm
testing with
assuming.
Biyama.
Yeah, number 9. I'm assuming they would have wanted. Donovan Clingan to fall here. He doesn't fall here. I'm going Cody Williams at number 9. Okay, number 10. You've got the Utah Jazz. Just picked Keontae George last year. They got Taylor Hendricks.
I go with Nikola Tofik, and they can let him heal for 1 year.
Damn it. Okay. Number 11, we got the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, who have Kobe White, potentially DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. What feels like a right pick for them here is I am going to shock the world. I'm going Zach Edey at number 11.
Whoosh. Okay.
This is going to be like no mock draft ever, and Rob Dillingham has officially slipped to the OKC Thunder.
Okay. And this guy likely going top 10. Was Derek Carter? I'll go for Derek Carter.
Devin Carter?
Devin Carter. Sorry, Devin Carter.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the end is near for Rob Dillingham, but unfortunately, you got the Sacramento Kings, and I don't think he fits. I don't think he fits with the Sacramento Kings at all. And I think they're probably looking at defense, and I think they're looking at Ron Holland here. So I think they're going to pick Ron Holland at number 13. Okay, we got 14, and we got the Portland Trailblazers again.
I'll take Rob Dillingham.
Damn. And I think at this point, I think everyone would agree that the Portland Trailblazers just won the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Was it just the lottery that I did? Damn it. I just did the lottery. Oh well.
Oh.
Okay, so we got our top 14. That was fun. We'll probably we got it.
Let's just verbally go 15 to 20. I want to see what happens in Raptors. 15 is Miami. Let's do 15 to 20. Just we don't have to. Were you taking 15?
I don't even know who is on the board left. But
Miami.
Let me see here. One sec. Let's just why is it only the lottery? Oh, first round. There we go. Full draft. Dumb. My bad. Okay, so let's just go through the entire thing. Okay. Fanspo, start. Interesting. Why is not? Okay. Why am I not able to do this? Do I have to restart the whole thing? Like, what am I doing? Anyways, what is it? Miami was number 15. Okay, so this is who's been taken. I don't have the firmest grasp of who's remaining, but I'm assuming Miami takes Kalal Ware. At 15. At that point,
is Isaiah Collier is there. Then we have Tristan. Tristan is there. Bob Carrington is there. Furphy is there.
Furphy, holy shit. You go that high on him?
No, he has a promise. I think he's gonna go top 20. And he got a green room invite today, so
I don't want to put too much stock into that personally, but
yeah, but for him to they said he got a promise, then he skipped going back to college. Then now he got the green room invite, then obviously.
Right.
For him.
So I think
Orlando's maybe Orlando's gonna take him because they're looking for shooters. That's what I would think.
Isaiah Collier?
No, Furphy, the guy from Kansas.
So Orlando is 17.
Orlando is 18.
18. Okay, yeah. So you think he goes right below. So who are the players that are off the board before we pick? Kalal Ware? Probably.
Kalal Ware is still on the board. Bob Carrington is still on the board. Tristan is still on the board.
So basically, of the players that we picked, right, 1 through 14, right?
Yeah.
All these players. Do you see any of them slipping to 19? No, right? Not a chance.
No,
okay, so that
Zach
means
Edey.
that
Zach Edey.
Edey would be the only person you think could slip to 19. Okay,
and
so that means
and possibly Ron Holland.
Ron Holland at 19?
Possibly. I heard he's sleeping. Likely gonna fall to Miami.
That's hard to believe, but yes. Okay, so worst case scenario, you're getting one of Isaiah Collier, Tristan da Silva, Kalal Ware, Yves Missi, right?
Pretty much a lot of the players.
So basically, I'm trying to find what is the cutoff to the point where you have to pick someone that you don't like, and I think that cutoff is 21. I think you get about 21 picks into this draft before you have to start picking a player that you don't like. Now, it helps that players like, maybe players that you don't like as much go ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Let me ask you a question. If Rob Dillingham falls to 19, are you gonna take him?
Rob Dillingham,
Yeah,
I trade the pick.
I'll trade the pick too. I used to love him a lot. I'll trade down.
So NBA draft.net is literally horrible, but they're 15, they're 14. Okay, so Jacoby Walter, Bub
Oh,
Carrington.
Jacoby Walter is another one that I like.
Right. So you're gonna have a pick. You're not gonna be picking like you're not the last dog at the litter, basically. The last dog at the
Yeah,
litter is like pick 22,
yeah,
right?
22. Yeah. Hmm.
So you got Khalil Ware, you got Ease Misi, you got Rob Dillingham, Pacom, Daron Holmes, Johnny Furphy,
Jacoby
Keyshawn
Walters.
George potentially. I'm not a fan of Keyshawn George. I got to tell you right now. If the Raptors draft Keyshawn, I'm out. I like so here are the players that I would not want to see the Raptors draft on draft night. Okay, I would not want to see them draft Salong because it means they moved up, and I would be devastated. Or it means that he slipped, and then you took him anyway. At which point, I would still be devastated. I'm not enamored with the idea of Isaiah Collier. I would not want to see them draft Rob Dillingham. Like, not just not a
Bob,
fan.
Dil- Rob Dillingham or Isaiah Collier, who would you prefer? I think
Neither.
I'll take a five-star recruit that maybe didn't do well in its first year in college. And
Like 165 pounds is still 165 pounds. He's got 6'3" wingspan. He does not defend. I mean, we're talking
who
about Luka Doncic here.
are you
Not
talking
defending
about?
in the
Isaiah Collier?
no, Rob Dillingham. Neither one of
I'm
those
talking.
guys is a great defender, right? So that's where I'm saying like, okay, like I understand there's star upside with Rob Dillingham offensively, but it's like 2%. It's like 2% chance he becomes like a star, like star, you know?
What of Collier attacking the rim?
I don't love his athleticism and his, burst to do that in the
I think.
NBA. I think he'll struggle. He has like typical high school prep prospect struggles in the NBA written all over him.
A
Now he could be
A
successful,
A
maybe not.
AU basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there are guys where like I feel like they will be successful in the NBA. Johnny Furphy is a guy that I think could be successful in the NBA, not will be. Deron Holmes I think will be successful in the NBA. Pacom could be successful. Um, not sure that Terrence Shannon is going to be on the Raptors radar. I'm not sold on Jalen Tyson at all. Uh,
What was your take on Terrence Shannon Jr.? If he's there at 31, I'll take him and run.
you would take him and run. What do you like
At
about him?
31, is scoring, shooting, attacking the basket. The only thing I don't like about him is the age. Well, who cares about it? It's just 22, right?
Hmm.
I-
Sorry, I think I lost you there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry, I had a call coming. The other reason I think the Raptors have not looked at him in the past, I think, is because of the issue that got cleared yesterday.
This is Toronto, bro. This is liberal ass media Toronto. Like you just
They're
you
gonna
you
eat him
got to
alive.
you got to look at it that way, right? Like
Hmm.
even if the player is right, the attention given that you have already had a lawsuit and a player get banned from the NBA in the last
Hmm.
year, and you had another player who got kicked out of the NBA for a couple of years for taking illegal drugs. Like this has been a squeaky clean organization for a really long time, and they've had 3 instances, right? I don't think they even want to touch this. I really don't.
Yeah, if I would expect my side to be sympathetic to somebody like that, right? Because he had the stuff that happened in the
Okay, bro,
Oakland.
like that's different. Let's be real. That it's very. It was not a
I,
RAP.
I know, but
Extension letter.
honestly, when I read the issue, when I read what happened the first time, I knew it was made up, honestly, from the get-go, because it was like in a club, everybody was there. It's like open. And later, when they started tracking the lady and her friend, they're trying to, they seek athletes and trying all to make money pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had a very like she posted a lot of stuff that messed up the case, which showed that she was trying to make it. She made it up.
I get it. I'm just saying, like, as much as you can
Yeah,
be
I
sympathetic
know,
to
I know
that.
the PR, right? Yeah, I know the Raptors of all this stuff. But
Exactly.
if the talent is there to the one you take it, I think sometimes we're too clean and as an organization, and
Right.
yeah, at the end of the day, you want to win.
I'm trying to recreate the draft that we just did. You took Modest Bazelis number 6, and then I took, who did I take at number 7? I took Donovan Clingan number 7, and then at number 8, you took uh, Salon for the
Salon,
for the for the Spurs, and then number 9 for the Memphis Grizzlies took Cody Williams, and then number 10
Nikola
for Utah, you
Topic,
took Nikola Topic. And then 11 for the Bulls, I went crazy and took Zach
Zach Edey.
Edey. Where the
I
hell
don't
is
think the
he?
Bulls are taking ED. The Bulls didn't even work him out. Mhm.
That's fair. And then at 12, we got the OKC Thunder, and we had them take who? Devin Carter. Yep,
Yeah, Devin
Devin
Carter.
Carter at okay at 12, and then
Exactly gonna go to the
13
Spurs.
was Ron Holland to replace some of the defense.
Then Rob Dillingham.
And then number 14 was Rob Dillingham, who has to now share the backcourt with Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp. And like, this is just and Scoot Henderson. Like, what the fuck? This, like, that's a glut, if ever there was one. Okay, so now we are finally at number 15, which is the Miami Heat. I believe this is my pick. The
It's your
Heat.
pick, yeah.
I am picking
Oh,
Jared McCain.
oh, geez, you're right.
Okay,
So
number
somebody, somebody,
16. Who you got?
who's picking 16?
Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia, Isaiah Collier.
Wow. Okay, cool. Okay, so Collier goes 16. Now I am number 17. I am the Lakers. I have to think Kyle Filipowski is really high here. Khalil Ware could be high here. Bob Carrington, Tristan Da Silva. But I got to think about, like, how does their ownership and how does their team operate?
I
Uh,
think Kyle just got a green room invite, so likely gonna go somewhere top 20.
who?
Kyle Phillip and Posky just got a green room invite this evening, so
Hmm.
maybe like. What about your hips, Missy? You don't want to take him? It's a project, right? Like I just want to win now.
I'm trying to rig it so that he gets to the Raptors.
I'm
Um.
gonna I'm gonna pass on him in my pick.
Okay. Um.
Oh yeah, you is your pick. Sheesh. Then I'm picking my thing
Could
then
could
so
could
that
you
you
could
pick.
you see could you see Jacoby Walter being the pick here?
No,
Not a chance. I
no.
feel like I feel like Isaiah Collier.
After Jalen Hood, Chifino last year, they're not gonna do it.
So you think,
They're
man?
likely gonna go for a big
Okay, I'll go with Khalil Ware here. I think, like, they're just gonna be tantalized by the upside of him, and him
and
being,
hoping that you learn from LeBron.
yeah. Number 18, the Orlando Magic.
They need a shooter. This is tough. They have so many point guards. I'll go with Kai Filipowski.
Okay. Number 18, Filipowski.
So,
Number 19, easiest pick of the draft for me, East Misi, and I never ever look back. Okay, perfect. I didn't have to see who else was on the board. It's just like so easy for me. Okay. Number 20, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers. Who are they picking?
can you go up a little bit?
That's it.
Jacoby
Jacoby
Water.
Walter,
Jacob,
Tyler
yeah, for
Smith.
Jacoby Water.
Okay. Interesting. Um, okay, number 21, which is the New Orleans Pelicans, who always draft well. They are picking Bob Carrington.
Yeah, for real. They want to trade. Yeah, Then
Okay.
number
Number
22.
number 22, the Phoenix Suns, who could desperately use a
Tristan
player.
Tristan the Silva.
This is the obvious pick for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think
22.
he'll last.
Okay. 23, the Milwaukee Bucks, and they will select. Is this my pick?
Yeah.
Okay. The Milwaukee Bucks select. I think they should go with. I think they go Keyshawn George.
Has his defense.
Not great.
Okay. With this guy Demi Lillard. Don't need somebody. Okay. Then number 24. Is that New York?
Knicks, back-to-back Knicks picks. They could go
Okay.
back-to-back Jayhawks.
Yeah, I'll go with Terrence Jr.
Okay. Terrence Shannon Jr. going there.
Yeah.
And what's your 20? And then okay, I got 25. My 25th pick for the Knicks, Ryan Dunn.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Feels like a very Knicks pick. And honestly, like I think I would have gone to Ron Holmes and Ryan Dunn. Now it's making me think, damn, I would really like to trade, something to get 24 and 25 from the Knicks. Because if these players are going to be available at 24 and 25, that's great. Okay, who else? Okay, number 26. We've got the Washington Wizards up for their second pick. They picked Alex Sarr, and now they are going with
Darren Holmes.
Damn, the Wizards like fleeced the draft. That's great. I mean, not really, but in terms of theory, like Deron Holmes has been mocked as high as the lottery, so they get something really good here. Now we got the suddenly ascending and very deep team that can't sometimes generate offense, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's your pick, or this is my
Your
pick?
Your pick.
My pick. I'm gonna go with Peckham Dadia here.
Okay.
Seems like the type of player they would really target.
Well, they don't need project; they need to win now, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then
20. We got 28, and that is the Denver Nuggets.
I'll go with Tyler Kolek.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I probably would have gone Johnny Furphy here, but sure. Okay, so then we got number 29, and that is the OKC Thunder, and they are not passing on Johnny Furphy here. So there's your draft first round promise to Johnny Furphy. He is not falling past them. And
the Boston Celtics, they love shooting Tyler Smith.
Okay, cool. So that is the end of the first round, and now we'll just go as far as who the Raptors pick with their first pick of the second round. So
somebody good is going to drop to 31.
Well,
I like AJ Mitchell. AJ Mitchell is the one that went to Australia, right?
Mm-hmm. So we got East Missy with the first pick. I think that, damn, you know what I mean? Like, it sucks. It's like the cutoff is right here for me in terms of now I suddenly do not see anything that I'm like, oh man, this is amazing. Like, I could sell myself on Juricic, like as a guy who could maybe be, like a viable player in the league. Baba Miller should not be here because he went back. Jonathan Mogbo, and this is why I think you go off the board a little bit and you get somebody who just.
I'll go for AJ Mitchell.
Interesting.
Played really well. They combined.
I just drafted Jonathan Mogbo.
Oh sheesh.
Yeah, I went right off the board.
The fans are gonna go crazy. He's missing a Mogbo. Oh my god.
Why?
They'll be calling for my size here. They're both projects. That means that you're literally just tanking for next year.
I You know what? Actually, like I think Adam Bona was also and Ulrich Comche was also in play there. I think you could.
They'll tell you that Daco is right that we're not going to win for the next 2 years. This is
Dude,
tanking.
like I've talked about this before. Like
I
he
heard
didn't
that.
say that. He didn't say that.
I know you said it. I was just saying that. I would just tell them that. That was like, okay. So, amplify it and say no wonder Daco said that because we just need projects. No, I'm not going to take 2 projects. Heck no.
I don't think they're projects necessarily. And I mean, look, it's like athletically, you just got way more athletic. In this draft, you just drafted 2 serious athletes, right?
But if you
Mogbo
listen to his
and
interview, we're
Easy
looking
are.
for, you need somebody that can shoot. Okay, those two,
You need
like,
somebody that can collapse the defense, man. You need someone who can sprint in transition. Like we saw RJ Barrett thrive. He's an athlete, right? So you got
hmm
athletes. I think it would help. Anyways, it's been fun. It's been fun exercise. Obviously, I hope the draft breaks a little bit differently, and it will. Obviously, it will. But I'll be curious to see in 2 weeks how accurate this was. We'll definitely do another mock draft show. Um, and obviously we're gonna do the draft live. We're gonna do
let's do one before the draft and invite this guy. Was it Vincent? Like we did
yeah,
last
that
year.
would be interesting. I don't know how plugged in he is right now and how much he's watched, but maybe we can get someone who's we can bring him on and have some fun with it. But yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot for
All
calling.
right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thanks.
Peace. Yeah. All right. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. This video, which started out as everything about Zach Edey, turned into a video about Biggs, and then eventually turned into a video where FA and I went back and forth and tried to do a mock draft. Hopefully, the draft does break out this way, and we do get Edey. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of his. I think he has something special in terms of long term potential. Yes, you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait a very long time to see that potential. It might be a couple years, but you will just have to meet the guy and just trust that he's gonna put in the work to get there at some point. For the meanwhile, he's a rim running, athletic big who can do some cool stuff in terms of being a switchable guy. Hey, thanks a lot, James. Really appreciate this super chat, man. Really appreciate this. Um, the boom arm, which I unhooked, is right here. Hold on, can y'all see it? It's cool, right? So that and someone messaged yesterday saying they got us a flag from the Amazon wish list in the description, which is really cool. So we are slowly but surely, by the time the draft comes around, I promise you the studio will be lit and we will go into next year starting out on the right foot. So thank you for the super chats, thank you for the support, thank you for the likes, thank you for the comments, thank you for all the stuff, and thanks for hanging out with me as we work through this. I will not have a negative reaction if the Raptors draft Zach Edey. There are drafts in the past 25 years when the NBA was a little bit different, where he would be shooing for like a number 1 or number 2 pick. I think he works hard. I think he's got a lot of grit, a lot of toughness, and I think he's got a little bit of dog in him. And I like that. Championship banner incoming. That is going to be really fun. So thank you so much to the community member who ended up getting that for us. That's probably going to go right behind me, or it's going to go right over there. That'll be really cool. I see a lot of other Raptors podcasters. They have a lot of Raptors gear, a lot of Raptors, memorabilia and stuff like that. So, James McPherson saying, great show, really enjoyed it. Going back to the beginning, surprised that you changed your mind. And Edey, I'm cautiously optimistic on him. Yeah, I would like to believe that I am someone who is um, getting much better at changing my mind before I need to change it. Right. So getting comfortable with, number one, I don't have any issues with being wrong. I'm perfectly fine being wrong tonight. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to win. Perfectly comfortable being wrong with that. I don't have any aversion to being wrong. And I was talking about this with my friend just a couple of days ago, where I talked about how you respond to being wrong tells people who you are. I mean, it really, like right now, I picked the Dallas Mavericks to win in this series, and they're down 3-0. So I look very wrong, and I'm picking them to win tonight, and they could very much get swept tonight, and I'll look even more wrong. So I don't feel any need to hide from that. I don't feel a need to dodge from it. I don't feel a need to blame anybody for it. I was just wrong. I underestimated a team that I was very high on all year in the Boston Celtics, right? Um, so yeah. Anyways, so we will get the studio set up. I'll be doing a post game live tonight for the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. And Damien saying, "How you respond to being wrong? So true. Love your words and what you're doing. Thank you so much." Yes, I agree. So yes, I mean, like, look, like course correct as soon as possible. In life, so many of us, we're wrong about something. We might be wrong about a person. We might be wrong about particular behavior, and then we try to double down because we have an ego problem. And it's not an ego problem, really. It's a self-esteem issue, right? When you yourself I'm just sharing this, unsolicited advice with those of you who are still tagging around till the end, because I think it's been one of the biggest things to work through with this channel. Um, it's just getting comfortable with being wrong, right? When we're kids, we're taught don't make mistakes, right? We're taught to not make mistakes. And I think one of the things that I noticed about Scotty very early on was, that he had this remarkable quality to be able to make mistakes. That's why he throws some of the passes that he throws. He's comfortable with turnovers. He doesn't beat himself up about turnovers. I think it's a good lesson for life in general. Be comfortable making a mess. It's okay. It doesn't define you. You are not your problems. You're not your mistakes. You are not all those things. And so getting to that point where you're comfortable making mistakes, it will make you a lot less defensive when you have to own up to those mistakes, right? Because you're not fighting for your spirit, your soul, whatever, right? You're just admitting to something. And so many people, come to terms with the fact that how many people make a bad situation worse by doubling down on a mistake? How many people, notice that they made a mistake buying something or whatever, and then they double down and buy more of it, or they purchase a stock, that maybe they made the wrong investment, and they're just like, oh, but it's cheaper now, let me buy more and double out. I think that's the thing, at some point you do have to get comfortable with the idea of making mistakes and then, admitting to it. Friends of mine told me that I would be wrong about Zach Edey. We'll see in a couple of years. I'm like, okay, let me watch the tape and see for myself. Is there something on his tape that is giving me, a reason to be more optimistic? Partially, yes. Partially it is that. Partially it is listening to his interviews and watching some of his tape and saying, okay, maybe some of these charges that people are throwing at him are unfounded. There's also an element of this draft is just that weak that I cannot imagine passing on a player that is at least this good when what I'm passing up on him for is nowhere near as good, right? Like it's different if it's like Giannis, right? Where it's like, okay, he's raw, but look at what he could turn out into. But some of these guys are just raw and their upside is not even as good as what Zach Edey is today. So it's like, why am I passing up on them? Because I have a theory about a player, in the modern NBA and how they have to be. I'm watching the NBA finals, right? I'm watching Daniel Gafford. I'm watching Derek Lively. These guys are both drop bigs, right? Lively is switchable. Okay, fine. But Horford is pretty compromised on switches. I mean, he's been doing really well in this series. He's doing great in this series. But yeah, like it gives me a theory that, okay, the Raptors are pretty defensively compromised right now. Maybe adding Zach Edey to that is not going to help. But at the same time, Zach Edey is not a non-defender. Zach Edey is just a positional defender that might be a little bit limited in terms of what he can do defensively, but what he does defensively could be elite. So I'd be very curious to see if Edey falls to 19. I very much doubt it. I very much doubt it. He's made a lot of believers at the combine, and I feel like someone is going to take a chance on him between 1 and 17. I think his ceiling, his absolute ceiling, is probably 7 or 8, maybe 9 to Memphis. If Donovan Clingan's off the board, Memphis just decides, hey, let's just take the guy. He kind of fits a need for us right now. Um, and I think his floor is probably 21. So right in the Raptors range, but I doubt he gets to us. Um, all right. Talk to y'all later. Enjoy the game and go Mavs. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.